Okay.
I knew he got sick. I didn't know he died.
Yeah, he does.
Please rise. Okay. Line item number 2, a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay. Line item number 3, public testimony. Anybody not on the agenda may appear before the court at this time. Sheriff,
Sure.
anybody out there? You got anybody, Robert?
He doesn't have any.
Not being any, we'll go to line item number 4. Consider approving minutes from previous meeting.
I make a motion to approve minutes presented.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
We can't hear Renee.
Motion approved.
We can't hear Renee.
Okay, hang on.
There she goes.
There, now we can.
Okay, I'll speak louder.
Okay, line item number 5, discuss and consider budget amendment request from Commissioner Precinct 2 Ventura Garcia to transfer funds from the following: 2,000 from 22-622-454-00 repair motor vehicles to line item number 226-22554 repair parts.
Commissioners Court, I have looked at the request and it is a valid request.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 5
Second the
presented.
motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, line item number 6, consider courthouse closure for November the 2nd for the purpose of November 2021 uniform election, AISD bond election.
That one's already in the calendar.
Yeah. That's closure. I think that's already part of the
Part of
holidays.
the holidays.
Yeah,
Yes.
so make a motion to,
No action?
yeah, just to, no action, I guess.
Do we have to go ahead and,
There's a motion for no action.
Michael,
It would just go ahead and no action.
no action?
Yep.
If it's already part of the holiday, we don't have to have an action?
Yeah, I checked with Noe. I don't have access to the calendar, but he said it was already on there as a day of closure at the courthouse.
Let's just go ahead and put a motion to it
I was gonna say, let's just make the motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
I'll
to-
second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Normally these constitutional ones are pretty low turnout, but we've got the bond election piggybacking this time, so we may have a larger than usual turnout.
Okay, line item number 7, consider and take action to approve collegiate bid use and purchase price agreement between Jim Wells County and Tony Ortiz.
That's yours. President?
This is for precinct 2. We're gonna be purchasing caliche from Tony Ortiz. We have an agreement and so
Where's that?
I'll make a motion to accept item number 7 presented.
I'll second the motion.
there's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Into the, where's that?
Right there by my precinct, right behind
By the
my,
neighbor?
yeah, by the naval aid station. Actually, you might be close to you.
Like when we're working in Tecolote.
Anyway, line item number 8, your presentation for an overall overview of the Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration published guidelines for how they will invest 3 billion in funding allocated to the agency by the American Rescue Plan. And it's 6 funding programs. The funding will be made available to communities through competitive grants. Community Concepts will discuss investment priorities, eligibility requirements, program details, and deadlines. Will be discussed investment priorities, eligibility requirements, program details, and deadlines.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My condolence.
I condone.
Thank you.
I know I
Appreciate
never.
that.
Anyway,
Appreciate
go ahead.
very much. So I'm here again this morning, and this presentation will be brief. I've got about 7 slides. And the purpose of doing the presentation is that we have talked about perhaps each of the precincts coming up with one project in each of their precincts and maybe one big project. I also had talked about looking for other sources of funding that we could use to leverage that big project or, one of the projects in the precincts. And I know y'all are familiar with the Economic Development Administration, or EDA. We do have a project that's a grant proposal that's before them currently. But I wanted to talk to you all a little bit about some of the other categories that are.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Before? I might sound not very smart. The 3 billion in funding allocated, that's what's allocated for the region?
The entire state.
Oh, for the-
For economic development through the EDA, they have $3 billion. And they have 6 categories that they've broken out those 3 billion into.
Okay, and our share is like 8 million. Right?
Okay, ours is through the American Rescue Plan.
Right, okay.
We have 8 million that was directly awarded to Jim Wells County.
Okay.
EDA is a funding source that we can look into possibly submitting a grant proposal to them. Should we have a big project that we want to use some of our American Rescue funds
Okay.
and leverage it with applying for one of these categories that I'm going to talk about. And again, it's all depending on the project or projects that the commissioners ultimately decide on pursuing.
I was a little confused about.
Yes, the two, it is confusing because it says American Rescue Plan here. And what it is, it's this funding that the EDA received is part of the funds from the American Rescue Plan. So the state received a big pot of monies, and then each county, city, tribal units, everybody received a portion of the American Rescue Plan.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So the 3 billion in the American Rescue Act funding is to invest in communities. And this investment that EDA is looking at doing is going to support bottom-up economic development. That's going to be the focus. And it's going to be focused on, of course, advancing equity in some of the smaller communities or areas where we have seen a large proportion of our community impacted by the pandemic. It's also about creating good paying jobs and helping workers to develop in demand skills, building economic resilience. For example, bringing back our economic community here because we were impacted by the oil and gas industries. So some of these categories we can focus on meeting some of this criteria here. And of course, accelerating economic recovery for the industries and the communities that were hit hardest by the coronavirus pandemic. Slide. So the 3 billion that the state has received is broken up into some categories. For example, jobs for today. That they look at the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation. That's called the Good Jobs Challenge. And if we wanted to look into perhaps addressing some of these areas, we would apply under the Good Jobs Challenge. The other one is called the Economic Adjustment Assistance, and that's for communities to build up our economic recovery, our communities. And thirdly, Regions for the Future, that's under Build Back Better Regional Challenge. And I'll talk about each of these in detail. Next slide, please. So the NOFAs, or Notice of Funding Opportunities, these are the 6 categories. I'm not going to touch on all of them. I picked out the ones I thought perhaps the commissioners would be interested in maybe looking into. The first one, of course, is the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation. And what that is for accelerating communities that were impacted by the related travel and tourism. And that is, there's 240 million there for competitive grants. If we wanted to look into the impact that was made here locally for our travel and tourism. The second one is the Good Jobs Challenge. That one has 500 million in it. And that is to establish or strengthen regional systems to train workers with in-demand skills through employer-driven training, supporting participants with wraparound services, and employer commitments to hire. We would create and look at a program that would establish or strengthen our workers and provide training either through Coastal Bend and Del Mar. And I believe, and I apologize, I didn't have Mr. Larry Martinez here, who is our Economic Development Director, but I know that he's currently looking at, perhaps bringing in some additional training to train some of our employees, to cross-train them in different jobs so that we can look for other businesses, companies, and perhaps that would, look into creating an economic community for us. The third one is the Economic Adjustment Assistance, and that's to invest in infrastructure, technical assistance, planning, and revolving loan programs through competitive grants available to every community. The number 5, the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, is to transform, this one's going to have $1 billion in it, and that is to transform 20 or 30 economically distressed regions through substantial investment, through groups, for example, having 3 to 8 projects. And what this basically is that you look at working in partnership with some of your local surrounding communities and coming together and creating one big project, what we call a regional project that would strengthen our economy. One example I can think of is how Duval County, Jim Hogg, Brooks, maybe working together, all of those that were impacted by the oil and gas industry, coming up with something that would create jobs, either with training, creating jobs, looking for bringing manufacturing or other businesses to the community. That is also something that you could consider. Again, I'm bringing these to you all's attention so you can start getting those wheels turning. And these are possible fundings that we could use to leverage some of our $8 million that we have. Next slide, please. So under the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation, if you look at the challenge, there's 240 million there. That, again, these are competitive grants. We would have to submit a proposal, and that is for assistance for communities that suffered economic injury because of job losses in travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. The EDA, of course, prefers projects that directly support the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. Next slide, please. Oh, we're waiting on that. Does anyone have any questions about this particular category on this one? Okay, so the other category is the Good Jobs Challenge. That one is, of course, to get Americans back to work by establishing regional systems that train workers with in-demand skills. You have a manufacturing company or an industry that wants to come in, but it's requiring some skilled workers. And if we don't have that, or we don't meet that demand, this particular grant would provide us with funding to train those workers in that particular field or area. The program is designed to fund, develop skills training curriculum. It provides the material, technical expertise to train our workers and secure employer commitments to hire. We would then have, help the manufacturing company or any industry come in and say, but you're going to commit to hiring X amount of workers within our communities. This could also work and partner with the regional job, where this particular company would have to commit to hiring X amount of workers within those surrounding partners that we talked about earlier. So this program implementation is for funding non-construction jobs to provide workforce training and connect workers with quality jobs, including wraparound services. So this Good Jobs Challenge focuses on training our workers. We had for many years, and we still are known as the hub city, the oil and gas industry hub. But that's the expertise that we have. And we need to look at developing other skills or possibly having our workers have that availability to be able to get trained in other skills. So that's what this grant would do. Next slide, please. Again, the Good Jobs Challenge. The beneficiaries here, of course, are your unemployed or your underemployed workers who are underserved in some of these communities. Again, we look at our partners, these small communities who were mostly, their workers were oil and gas. And this would provide opportunities to train them in other areas where there are higher paying jobs for them or are competitive, as our oil and gas industry is. Again, it provides capital expenses, which would provide equipment purchases for them, a training facility leases. Construction activities are not allowed in any workforce program that requires construction. You could apply for other grants that would, provide a workforce training facility, or we could partner with our current workforce. And next slide, please. And if you all have any questions, I know I'm going a little fast with this, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, the Economic Adjustment Assistance Grant, this is the most flexible one. This is program is intended to fund non-construction and construction activities that are not already part of another NOFA that we have out there. So this would provide technical planning, workforce development, entrepreneurship, and public works infrastructure projects are eligible for funding under this. So keyword here is if you're looking at any of these infrastructure projects, workforce development, this particular grant source, Economic Adjustment Assistance, has $500 million in there that we could apply for.
And so this revolving loan program, is that for the municipalities or is it for businesses, like a business?
For
wants to start a
industries,
business?
yes, you're exactly right, Commissioner. It's you could provide revolving loan funds to help assist some of these businesses, our local businesses here, our industry here that was affected because of the pandemic. Many had to lay off some of their workforce, some had to close. You could certainly look at a program that would help them jumpstart back their businesses and of course help the economy, while we're also looking at training some of the workforce as well. So, it's a package that we would look at in preparing a proposal that would tie in all of these components. And I'll address some of that probably in the next couple of slides. But yes, you're correct that we could certainly look at something like that. And I can't think of a specific city, but there's so many cities out there that do what we call the micro loans or the Main Street loans, or have an economic development downtown center where they provide these either zero interest grants or business loans, a small business loan to help them get through this. And you can certainly entertain maybe looking at something like that. Again, the whole purpose of this presentation, as I promised in my proposal, was that I would continue to come to the commissioners and present different funding sources so that you all have many, many other funding sources that you can look at, that we can certainly look at. We don't want to close the door on anything, on any project that perhaps we can proceed with the other funding sources. Okay, next slide, please. So the Build Back Better Regional Challenge, this is the one where we talk about partnering with our partners to the west or south, or bringing in other partners and having one big project that would commit to hiring our local workforce. And for example, if you look at the pink where it says the manufacturing cluster, that's an example of working with, you would have your major city, you would have a university, your major industrial town. These are just what we call the clusters of who you could bring together to apply for one regional program. You have, I talked about how we could work closely with our neighbors to the west. And the reason I brought them up is, of course, they were also oil and gas industries that were impacted. Their workforce was impacted by that. So creating one big regional program, that certainly is very doable and competitive. And we could certainly compete with some of these other communities that are applying for this if we created one big regional program. Next slide, please. So phase one of this Build Back Better Regional Challenge, it's a two-phased approach. The first one was, of course, they're going to award 50 to 60 regions are going to receive grants for technical assistance. And that's to help us create, okay, we know what we want, but how do we get there? So they would provide the technical assistance in the first phase to prepare for phase two. And that's $500,000 per region. Phase two, they're going to award 20 or 30 regions from phase one the monies to implement their full project cluster. And that is 25 to 75 million or up to 100 million per region. That's what we would be looking at, or if we were to work together as one big region. Any questions on this? Okay, next slide, please. And that's it.
You had the deadlines there, you didn't.
Yes. Did I skip those? I'm not sure if I put those on there. It's an ongoing.
You had deadlines.
I did.
on there.
Okay.
The one right before.
Can you reverse it?
I apologize. I did.
There it is.
Oh, yes. So that's the deadline for the regional project. They would like for you to come up with a concept, a working concept. And that deadline is October 19th. So if we wanted to look at working with other
And then the
partners,
other one's next year.
and then phase two is March 15th. That's when we would submit the project. Phase one is to give us the technical assistance to start working on the project. We create the concept and then we submit the proposal, and they would give us funding so that we get technical assistance to help us to get ready for phase two. But
You don't have much time, right?
not for this one. Now, all the others are open and you submit your proposals. It's ongoing. They'd like to see something by 2022, at least March of 2022, get something going. But for this one, yeah, that the timeframe is short. But again, it's the concept, putting the concept together, and that can be done. It can be done. I just need y'all's help to get going on the projects. I know I have been visiting with some of you, and I apologize last week. Of course, we had to take some time off, but we're back and we're ready to go. We also, I have created a spreadsheet that I will get with the judge to discuss those spreadsheets, but it's to meet with all the other departments and help them identify what their needs are, because we'd like to bring those forward to the commissioners as well. And we'll be doing a presentation, with EDA, with economic development here. Is there any questions? I know I went through this pretty fast, but I know that we're all worried about the weather and want to get back out there to our constituents. And so, anything, Mr. Noe?
Appreciate it.
Questions?
Any questions, Margie?
Okay, all righty.
Sure appreciate the presentation.
Yes, and I hope that this will help you again, start thinking about some of these bigger projects, and that kind of gives us an idea of which direction we're going to be going.
And I know that you sent out email on the
The
meeting.
stakeholders?
Yeah, to the
Yes.
stakeholders and all that, but do you have a date?
I have to meet with 2 other commissioners to get their stakeholders. And once I have those, I will start setting up, I'll get back with you all to start scheduling meetings with the communities and where we'll be holding those. That would be the next step. Once we identify the stakeholders, we want to meet with those stakeholders first, and we need to identify a place. So I encourage you all to contact your stakeholders, let them know that I will be reaching out to them, what this is all about, and then we'll bring them together and we will discuss what their role is going to be in these community participations that we're going to have. And again, the goal is to have the community have input in what their needs are in your precincts. Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank
And
you.
again, our heartfelt condolences, Yolanda.
Okay, line item number 9, consider approving payroll and bills as submitted by the county auditor with the exception of Fund 52, 53, and 54.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Make a motion to adjourn.
There's a-
Second it.
There's a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you so much.